It's always such a big moment in the parliamentary calendar, isn't it? The King's speech. And what were your sort of main takeaways?
Well, I think if we try and zoom out, what is he trying to achieve? And it is about the Rishi Sunak reset. He's running out of time before a general election and he has to shift the dial. And in that, I would say that this was a missed opportunity. On the framing of the speech, he talked a lot about long-term difficult decisions, but there was a lot of short-term election posturing within it. He talked about taking difficult decisions, but in reality, as you were saying, there were lots of pieces of legislation that he seemed to have put in the too hard to do box. And then when he talks about being a change prime minister, a break from the status quo, in that speech, we didn't see any new radical ideas. What we actually saw was a stress on continuity, and that's something that Number 10 themselves would say. And when I spoke to one former cabinet minister today, and this is not an irreconcilable, they said it seemed to them that he was managing, not leading. And what I would say is that without a clear clarity of messaging to voters, how can he really hope for them to tune back in?
That is the big question.
The monarch's procession to Parliament, age-old tradition, today with a new cast of characters. The first King's speech in more than 7 decades. But even as the monarch changed, centuries of ceremonial conventions still the same. Black rod banging on the door of the Commons, reminding us of Parliament's independence from the new king. This an important milestone for the nation and for these men too. Rishi Sunak trying to put a constitutional stamp on yet another political reset in what could be his first and last King's speech. It began with a nod to the past.
It is mindful of a legacy of service and devotion to this country set by my beloved mother, the late Queen, that I deliver this, the first King's speech, in over 70 years.
The King's voice, but this Rishi Sunak's slogan.
My government's priority is to make the difficult but necessary long-term decisions to change this country for the better.
The rhetoric all about the long term, but in reality, this PM looking at the here and now.
This bill will support the future licensing of new oil and gas fields, helping the country to transition to net zero by 2050 without adding undue burdens on households.
Legislating for more drilling in the North Sea, even as Labour rule it out. This a clear dividing line the Conservatives will look to mine in the run-up to a general election. On law and order too, the PM trying to be tough on crime and set the ground for attacking Sir Keir Starmer's record in his legal life before politics.
A bill will be brought forward to ensure tougher sentences for the most serious offenders and increase the confidence of victims.
Mr Sunak trying to signal his priorities to the public, but there was legacy-focused legislation too, pushing through his pet project on stopping smoking.
My government will introduce legislation to create a smoke-free generation by restricting the sale of tobacco so that children currently aged 14 or younger can never be sold cigarettes. My government will, in all respects, seek to make long-term decisions in the interests of future generations.
Rishi Sunak likes to talk about long-term decisions, but the truth is that an election is perhaps a year away, and he, for now, looks set to lose. So forget the rhetoric about difficult decisions for the long term of the country. The reality is that this Prime Minister is trying to frame the election and show you, the voter, clear differences between him and Keir Starmer in a bid to shift the dial. In the Commons, Sir Keir Starmer cleared this King's speech won't cut it.
We needed a King's speech that would draw a line under 13 years of Tory decline, a King's speech for national renewal and a serious plan for growth. But instead, we have a party so devoid of leadership, it is happy to follow a Home Secretary who describes homelessness as a lifestyle choice.
A PM so low on authority that the Home Secretary attempted to brief legislation around rough sleeping into the speech. And so many bits of legislation missing: conversion therapy, A-level reform, mental health, because his backbenchers have boxed him in. A momentous day done. The first King's Speech in 73 years delivered. Election dividing lines defined. And soon it will be for the voters to decide. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.